Hello learners, welcome to this course on preparation of research proposals in social sciences. Today we are going to discuss our lecture number 11, which is based on identifying emerging trends and research gap. We have discussed how to make synopsis, how to make research proposal, what are the component of research proposal, and today now we are moving to our next lecture, which will be more practical and more experiences based, that how you have to practically make the things which you have discussed in the previous lectures. So let us begin. Key learning themes for today's lecture: setting the content. What are the emerging trends in research? Sources to identify trends. What is the research gap? Types of research gap. How to identify a research gap. Why identifying trends and gap matters, and common challenges to avoid. So let us discuss all this one by one. Setting the content. See learners, when you are starting to make a research proposal and you have some idea about some certain research that you are going to take, it is very important for a researcher to understand that how to set the context. How to set the context. For example, you can see here a strong research proposal builds on what has been already studied. We have discussed this in a previous lectures also, but here we will discuss this thing in a more detailed manner, that how research proposal builds on what has already been studied. Recognizing emerging trends and gaps. This is interesting to know here, that when you are identifying something, you have to identify that what are the emerging trends also, and not only trends, what are the existing gaps which helps you to place your study in the right direction. Right direction means your study should be researchable, your study should be feasible. This step ensures relevance, originality, and contribution to the discipline. Now, what are the emerging trends in research? You can see here, I have identified few things which seems very emerging in a modern time, like patterns of new findings, methods or perspectives seen across the multiple research studies. It often links to technological advancement. We all know that now we are in a world of technology, and not in the field of social sciences, in the other disciplines also, researches and trends have emerged in the field of technological advancements. Shift in theoretical approaches, policy or curriculum changes, new societal and educational needs. Example you can see here, increased use of AI tools in educational assessment studies. It's a very interesting example. Nowadays everybody is trying to make things with the help of technology, and with a more pro version of technology we are moving towards artificial intelligence. So you can see that this is the way how we identify some kind of emerging trends in a research, and with these trends we can identify and we can get easily that yes, do we have some research ideas in these areas, and it will help you to make a very contextual and growing research in the present context. Now, it is important to understand as a researcher that what will be the sources to identify trends. You will not get trend all of a sudden, that something you are getting. There are some sources. So let us see what are that sources. First is systematic literature review and meta-analysis. Second is recent journal and conferences proceedings. Third is reports from academic bodies like UGC, NCERT, UNESCO, any other it can be. And research networks and academic database, example Scopus, Web of Sciences. Here the thing which I wanted to highlight here, that you as a researcher have to dig deeper into the process of identifying the trends with the help of these things like literature review, recent journal, because there is a huge amount of existing data that a researcher have when they are doing the works. So it is become very important to understand that in which direction I have to go, so that I can find some certain emerging trends. What is research gap? This is very technical and very interesting also for a research scholar or a person who is going to prepare a proposal, that what actually research gap means. An area or question that has not been addressed or fully explored in existing literature. Here we have to understand this, that an area which has not been fully addressed. Fully addressed means some components, some variables, some parts have been researched in different context. In different contexts that research has been done, but not fully explored. So, the moment you identify that there is something which is more to be done with related to some particular variable or any other variable, you got that yes, this is the research gap. Or you can understand it like that, research gap is something where you see the scope of doing some further research, scope of generating some new knowledge. It could be a missing population. You can make a note of this, that's where we are going towards identifying a research problem. A missing population, example rural students. Neglected variables, this is also very important. Neglected variable means sometime as a researcher you do not understand that yes, these variables are very important and should be researched. So, after some time we just neglect it. So, when you feel that this some certain kind of variables are neglected, it is a kind of a research gap. Outdated data, contradictory findings and lack of localized research. Here last point is very important for the researcher to understand, that especially in the field of social sciences, research context is very important. It is very important. So, we have to see that if there are some researches those who have done in some other context, is there any feasibility, is there any chance that repetition of that research can be done with some changes over context, that is localized research. So, when you find this kind of things, definitely you are coming to a point that this is a research gap. Types of research gap. Another interesting thing, that what are the types of research gap? Themes, gaps, methods and findings. Knowledge gap, missing information or unexplored issue, as I have just discussed. Missing information, somewhere when you find that yes, there is a lack of information in some certain kind of research related to methodology, variable, population or any unexplored issue, you can coin it as a knowledge gap. Second is methodological gaps. This is very interesting. Methodological gaps means there are some researches that has been done with using some certain kind of a design. For example, if you are doing a research with the help of a descriptive design and you are using questionnaire, and as a researcher you feel that if we can utilize some kind of observation schedule here to strengthen the data collection and come to the more meaningful conclusions, you identify a research gap here in terms of methodological gaps, lack of use of certain research design or tools. Theoretical gaps, weak or absent theoretical underpinnings. Contextual gaps, lack of study in a specific context, for example culture. You can see various kind of researches are going on, but does it have covered all kind of lectures? Does it have covered all kind of lectures? It may be a case. So, as a researcher, it's the prime importance of you that you identify these things, that whether is there any kind of a gap in some particular areas, and if you identify, it will be a kind of a research gap. Evidence gap, this is also important and serious for a researcher to understand, that there are limited empirical validation or conflicting results. If you have limited empirical validations, that is also a kind of a evidence gap. So, in a nutshell, I can say that if you find a research gap, it can be of these 5 different types, and it will be helpful for you to just make further ideas about your research topic. Next question comes, which is very useful for a person who is going to make a research proposal, that how to identify a research gap. Review and compare conclusion, limitations and recommendation across multiple studies. Use thematic coding to track recurring and missing idea. This is also very important, especially in the field of social sciences research, that we have to identify that is there any kind of a thematic research gap, and if you got that research gap and you can extend it further, a well designed study can be done over that particular situation. Ask what has not been studied. This is very important question. As a researcher, you should ask this question to yourself when you are in a very initial phase. What has not been studied? Because you may have, definitely you will have some certain interest toward variable and area of research, and under that area of research you have to make a point that yes, this thing has not been studied. Whose voices are missing? What need further investigation? These questions will drag you more closer to the research gap in a very systematic and a scientific manner. You have to think over these things. And there are some tools which can help you for doing these things, like Mendeley, Zotero. Excel can help in organizing insight. You can organize all these things, that in this some certain research I found this thing, in this some certain research I found this thing, with the help of the softwares, and they can provide you a idea, a collaborative idea that yes, these things are missing, and on the basis of that you can take your decision that yes, this is the identified research gap and I am going to move forward on this. Why identifying trends and gap matters? You have to understand this, that it is not only that you are having any research topic and you are going to do research over that. Before that, you have to understand that why this research gap matters. First, you can see it justifies the need of your researcher, because if you have some certain problem and that problem is really demanding and haunting the society, and if you come up with some solutions to that problem, definitely your research is highly valued. So just research gaps provides you the idea that whether the topic which you are going to do or you have identified is worthy or not. Helps formulate focused research question and objectives. This is also very important. It helps you in forming focused research question as well as objectives. It avoids duplication and enhance academic contribution. Positions your proposal with a progressive academic discourse. It is very important to understand that in all academic fraternity, in a research database or knowledge base, where your research stands and you are in a phase where you are going to propose your research idea, so it becomes very important for a researcher to understand that as a researcher what I am pointing and where my research actually stands in a progressive academic discourse. Because whatever research we are doing, we are believing that we will add on something to the existing knowledge system. So it is very important to justify and see the position of your proposal, your thought, your idea, that how much progressive it is in the present time. There are some common challenges to avoid. First is relying only on outdated literature. Here it comes to the point of a discussion that what is outdated literature. Learners, literature is always worthy and important for you, but at some point of time you have to understand that some literatures is not useful for you in the present context. For example, if you are doing a review of socio-economic status, definitely the component of socio-economic status 30 years or 40 years back will be different to the present time. So it is very important to review literature which is specifically and comprehensively related to your idea. Confusing research gap with topic novelty. This is also interesting. You may have some kind of a confusing research gap which seems very novel, very creative, but as a researcher you have to make your own decision that whether this is researchable or not. Overlooking cross-disciplinary insight. This is also very important, that this is a challenge. Please avoid it, that when you look cross-disciplinary insights, because you have to focus on your ideas across the disciplines with very precision. Next is ignoring studies in regional or non-English sources. This is also a problem. Here I will say, you can say it's not a problem which is countered by everyone, but as a researcher, when you are moving into the global world, you have to break this barrier also, because there will be some good research, those are being done in any regional language or any other non-English language. So you have to look into that. Do not avoid that if something is written in non-English language or regional language, or which you may not understand, you may take help from some person, those who know that language, but it will be good and secure that if you do the review and go to the process, that yes, this research also mentions this and this things. Concluding discussions, in the today's lecture, the fundamental things that which we are discussing is laying the groundwork for meaningful study. In a nutshell, I can conclude this, that whatever you are planning, whatever you are thinking, you are identifying your research gap to make your study meaningful, and you can see here, identifying trends and gap is not just academic, it's a strategy. It is not the whole thing that you have identified some research gap. For example, you have come to the conclusion that this certain research has not been done in this area. So it's not your all work done. You have to do again review of literature and make meaningful justification and arguments for rationale of the study, that why you want to do this. And ultimately it makes your study meaningful. This process makes your research relevant, timely and meaningful. Whatever work you are doing, it is important for a researcher to understand that what is the relevance of my research, how it is utilized in the present society, how the outcomes of the study will be fruitful for the society. So, and in what time you are able to do this. When you identify a research gap, you identify these things also at the same time, that this research have these kind of dimensions. You cannot continue any research for a extreme longer period of time, because there are some certain limitations when you propose your proposal. So when you design all these things, it actually makes your research relevant, timely and meaningful. Use a systematic, critical and creative approach to map what's missing. Mapping is very important. There will be several kind of pins that you identify in a research, that yes, these are the problems, these are the gaps, these are the things that I have identified and I want to move further. And for all these things, you have to pin it together. Pin it together means you have to map it, that this variable has been studied in this context, this problem has been done with this methodology, and especially this methodology and these variables have been studied over some certain population or sample. Because when you change the sample in social sciences, the things are changed, because it is very, very contextual. So it makes and helps you to systematize critically that how you approach towards your problem and what are the things which is missing in your research. So thank you so much.